Hi, my name is Amy and I'm back again today with another tutorial. I'm going to show you how to make a cute fabric headband today. They work up so quickly and they're so easy that you'll be making tons of them. To get started, I'll tell you what you're going to need. You're going to need a sewing machine, an iron and an ironing board. You're going to need fabric that measures about 12 inches by 3 inches. Some fusible web of the same measurement, and I like to use a lightweight fusible web. You can see it's very sheer. One side has an adhesive that irons on, the other side is just very soft. Additionally, you're going to need a 5 to 6 inch length of elastic, depending on how tight you want your headband to be. And then basic sewing supplies like a ruler, your scissors, straight pins, a turning tool, a marking tool. I like to use pinking shears on this project as well because it makes for a nice neat turning point when you turn your project out. And then also you're going to need a safety pin. Okay, all we have to do now is get started on the assembly. And first, what I would suggest you doing is going ahead and making a pattern. This is what the finished project is going to look like, and this is one that I've made actually for an order for my Etsy shop. And I actually personalized this one with a bee, but you can certainly do that, or you can make them just plain. They're completely reversible also. So I like to use 2 different pieces of patterned fabric, or even just plain fabric, solid fabric that coordinates, because it is completely reversible, so you might as well get as many wears as you can out of it. Okay, back to the pattern. This is my pattern. I like to measure out a rectangle, and you can leave it rectangle if you like. It's going to be about 12 inches by 3 inches, and your finished project will be about 11 3/4 by 2.5 inches at the width, the widest width of it. Anyhow, I've tapered mine slightly just because I like it to curve when it goes around their head. I just think that that looks really pretty tucked behind their ears. But you can certainly do a rectangle if you like, or you can make it thinner. But this is how mine goes, and you're going to cut 2 out of your main fabric, 1 out of your fusible web, and then again your elastic, and then you're going to have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I've also marked here that is the center of where you're going to have your elastic, and then there is a 1/4 inch turn, which I'll show you in just a bit. And then we can get started. So I've already pre-cut my fabric and my elastic for just easy purposes for this tutorial. I have chosen these pretty coordinating fabrics. I think they look great together. And what you need to do is go ahead and iron your fusible webbing onto your fabric, which I've already done, but I'll show you. Just following your manufacturer's instructions. It doesn't take much heat with this webbing. It's very thin and pliable. And it's just going to add a little bit of structure to your headband. I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but it does look better in the head, on the head, and lay a lot flatter in the hair if it has some webbing. I've done them both ways, and this is the way I prefer. So you want to go ahead and iron that on. Iron both sides just to make sure you've got all the creases out. And then what you'll want to do is, I like to go ahead and trace out my pattern on the back of the fabric with the webbing that I just did. So I lay my pattern, and then what I will do is, using a marker or a pen, whatever you have, is go ahead and I'm going to line up that end with that I said I'm going to fold to the very edge, and then just trace all the way around. Just like that. And I'm going to mark where I want my elastic to be. And then all the way around. That's it. And then take your pattern. You see where this is where I want my elastic to be. With your elastic on one side, you're going to go ahead and put your safety pin in there, and it'll make complete sense in just a minute. And what you'll want to do is sandwich. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and cut off just a little bit of this excess so I can see where my elastic is. There we go. Just a tiny bit. We're not going to cut out our fabric just yet. We'll cut that after we sew it. It'll make it so much nicer. for the finish. So what you'll do is you'll go ahead and sandwich your elastic between your fabrics, making sure you keep it pretty centered where that marking is for your elastic placement, and then pin it in place. Just like that. And you can see I have pinned my elastic right where I had it marked. Now you can feel where your safety pin is, and you don't want that to get into your seam allowance, so I suggest going ahead and pinning the elastic in place right along the center, making sure you've got everything still nice and neat and flat. And then remember I told you on your pattern that we had a place that came up that we're going to just fold. That's so that we have a nice hemmed finish at the end in our project, and all you need to do is just give it a slight 1/4 of an inch or so fold, and then iron it in place just like this. Use a little steam to help it along, and then all you have to do is I'm going to place one last pin down here just to keep it from shifting while I put it through the machine. And then starting at that end where you have folded your fabric, you're basically just going to sew right along those lines that you drew when you traced out your pattern. So make sure that my machine is set up on a straight stitch, and I like to use a 3mm length, and then back stitch generously because you're going to be turning this out and you do not want to rip your seam. And then just sew along that line. When you get to the edge, you've cut it pretty close to the edge, so you might want to go ahead, use your presser foot as a guide, and just give it a good 1/4 of an inch seam down there so that you don't end up ripping it when we turn it. Make sure you keep your pins out of the way. Actually, I'm just going to move that one. When you get down to the end, make sure you sew slowly in order to keep those hems folded up. Backstitch generously again. Clip your threads. It's as easy as that. And you're almost done. Now, this is where I like to use my pinking shears. It's not absolutely necessary, however. You can always, use a small pair of scissors to clip closely to these to your seam without actually going through your stitching line, because you wouldn't want to do that. You'll have a hole in your finished project. So I'm just going to carefully, as to not cut into my seam, just trim off the excess fabric. And if you use the pinking shears, it just allows for you to have a smooth curve when your project is turned right sides out, which you'll see in just a minute. But you can certainly just clip it. That's what my grandma taught me to do. There we go. Get rid of my trash. And here we are. This is where that safety pin comes in handy. It's stuck in there, and now we need to get it out. So what we'll do is we'll just, using that, just like you would if it were in a casing, you would fish that safety pin out and then just kind of pull it and work it out until you can pull this right side out. And if you've ever made a fabric tie or something like that for a drawstring, it's the same concept. And this is where your turning tool will come in handy. I like to use a paintbrush handle, but you can use anything, an actual turning tool or a blunt pencil. And you just run it along that seam to give it a nice crisp edge, gently so that you don't poke through your seam and make a hole, because you wouldn't want to create extra work for yourself on such a simple project. And then just make sure that you push those corners out so that they're nice and crisp. And then lastly, all you need to do is first you'll want to iron it down so that you have a nice, neat finish. always like to use a little steam just to help it along. These fabrics are beautiful. I love them. And then you can now remove your safety pin and then recruit another straight pin for your last step. All you have to do now is just tuck that end of the elastic about 1/4 of an inch into that casing. Try to keep it pretty center, and then just gently pin it in place so that it doesn't shift while you're sewing. And you're going to top stitch all the way around, which will close that closure and capture that elastic so that you have a finished headband that is completely functional. So what we'll do now is, and you can use a decorative stitch if you like for the top stitching. You want to try to stay as close to the edge of your seam as possible, and then or you can just use a straight stitch, which is what I'm going to do for this one, but I do like to use a zigzag stitch from time to time for top stitching. I think it looks fun. It's always nice to keep your needle in the down position when you turn corners. Make sure you don't get that elastic in the way while you're sewing. And then to keep your elastic in place, just hold your finger there, keep it secure. You want to sew over that pin. Backstitch over that elastic just to make sure that it's in there nice and secure. You don't want it to pop on you. Backstitch and you're done. Trim all your loose threads. You don't want those standing up in your hair. And there you have it. It's easy as that. A nice headband, completely reversible. You can wear it whichever way you'd like. Make sure you visit my shop at amybugsoriginalstyle.etsy.com and you can find a matching dress to this. And if you mention that you watch this tutorial, I will throw this headband in for free with the purchase of the matching dress. Thank you again. Bye.